The Dreams of Nebuchadnezzar, Babylon's Peaceful Night. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let the world slow down. You've just entered a realm where stories drift like soft whispers in the night, guiding you into peaceful dreams. The moon hung high over Babylon, casting silver light upon the fabled hanging gardens. A gentle breeze stirred the vines that draped from the marble terraces, their leaves swaying like whispers in the night. The air was thick with the scent of jasmine and lotus, weaving through the cool darkness like an unseen lullaby. Below, the distant murmur of fountains filled the silence, their waters cascading down into pools that shimmered like captured starlight. A lone gardener moved through the terraces, his steps slow, deliberate. His hands, calloused yet tender, carried a clay pitcher filled with cool water drawn from the Euphrates. He poured it gently over the roots of an ancient fig tree, watching as the soil darkened beneath its thirst-quenching touch. "Drink deeply," he murmured, his voice barely above the hush of the wind. "The night is kind." These gardens, he knew, were more than mere beauty. They were a gift of devotion, built by Nebuchadnezzar for his queen, who longed for the green hills of her homeland. Here, amidst the cascading terraces and verdant canopies, she could find solace. The king had wished to bring paradise to earth, and in the stillness of the night, the garden seemed to breathe with the dreams of its maker. He walked deeper into the maze of flora, running his fingers across the velvety petals of a night-blooming lily. It shivered beneath his touch, unfurling in the moon's glow. "A flower that wakes when the world sleeps," he mused softly. "Like the dreams of kings and poets." He moved toward a fountain, its carved stone edges worn smooth by time. The water within gleamed, rippling in silver waves as he trailed his fingers across the surface. The sound of trickling streams echoed softly, their rhythm as steady as breath, as life itself. Beyond the walls of the garden, Babylon rested, its golden towers bathed in the hush of night. But here, within this sanctuary of green, time slowed, and the weight of the world faded. The gardener closed his eyes, listening to the whispers of rustling leaves, the distant hoot of an owl, the heartbeat of the garden itself. His task was simple: tending, nurturing, offering care without expectation. But in these quiet hours, as he moved among the sleeping blooms, he felt a part of something greater. He was a keeper of dreams, of the vision that had shaped this place, of the love that had rooted it in stone and soil. A final breath of wind rustled through the terraces, carrying the mingled scents of blossoms and earth, of water and night. He smiled, setting his empty pitcher down beside the fountain. The garden would rest now, cradled in moonlight and the lullaby of flowing water. And soon, he too would sleep, wrapped in the stillness of Babylon's peaceful night. The Euphrates stretched like a silver ribbon beneath the starlit sky, its slow-moving waters reflecting the flickering glow of Babylon's torchlit walls. A warm breeze carried the scent of damp earth and distant myrrh, mingling with the hush of the river's gentle current. Along its darkened surface, wooden boats drifted in silence, their lanterns swaying with the rhythm of the water, casting soft halos of light upon the rippling expanse. A lone boatman sat at the stern of his narrow vessel, his oar slicing through the water with slow, steady strokes. The boat glided forward with barely a sound, a quiet traveler upon an ancient path. The river had known the passage of kings and traders, of poets and wanderers. It had carried their secrets, their dreams, their whispered prayers to the endless horizon. "The Euphrates has watched over Babylon for longer than any man can remember," the boatman murmured to no one and to everything. His voice was low, steady, a part of the night itself. Before our great walls were built, before even the first stones of our city were laid, the river was here. Watching. Flowing. Dreaming. The water lapped softly against the wooden hull, a rhythmic hush, like breath against the shore. He dipped his fingers into the cool depths, tracing circles in its surface. They say the river has a soul, that it listens, he continued, gazing out at the dark horizon. The old ones tell of Enki, the god of waters, whose whispers ride the currents. They say if you listen long enough, the river will tell you stories of the past. A heron lifted from the reeds, its wings outstretched like a shadow against the moon. The boatman watched as it vanished into the night, its call fading into the quiet hum of the water. The river carries time itself, he said softly, as if speaking to the stars. It has seen Babylon rise and fall and rise again. It remembers the hands that built the hanging gardens, the voices of merchants who crossed deserts to trade beneath our gates. And still, it flows, unburdened by the weight of years. His boat drifted in the current, following the slow pulse of the earth. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the rhythm of the river steady his breath. There was no urgency here, no need for haste. Only the water, the moon, and the endless, silent watch of the Euphrates. Somewhere in the distance, the faint sound of a reed flute rose on the night air, its melody carried by the wind. The boatman smiled, dipping his oar into the water once more, his journey continuing with the river's eternal flow. The night stretched on, peaceful and unbroken, as the Euphrates cradled Babylon in its quiet embrace. The night stretched endlessly over Babylon, a vast ocean of indigo and silver. Stars shimmered like scattered jewels, their light soft and eternal, untouched by time. From the highest tower of the great ziggurat, the royal astronomer stood in quiet reverence, gazing at the heavens above. A cool wind curled around the ancient stone, carrying the faint scent of incense from the temple below, mingling with the hushed whispers of the city in slumber. He traced a familiar constellation with his eyes, its pattern carved into the sky like a forgotten inscription. The stars have watched over us since the first dawn, he murmured to himself, his voice a breath within the night. He raised his hand, outlining the shape of a lion in the sky. The mighty beast of Babylon, he whispered. A guardian among the heavens. He turned to his great bronze tablet, where he had carefully recorded the movements of the celestial bodies. Night after night, he had studied their slow, deliberate dance, their passage through the sky, a language known only to time itself. His thoughts drifted, like clouds across the moon, to the dreams of Nebuchadnezzar. The great king had spoken of visions that came in the depths of sleep, a statue of gold, silver, bronze, and clay, a city built of light, a kingdom lost and reborn. Perhaps, the astronomer mused, the stars whisper to kings as they do to those who watch them. A deep silence filled the space between the stars and the earth, a silence not of emptiness, but of knowing. He let the quiet settle within him, steady as the pulse of the universe. Somewhere in the distance, the slow, rhythmic beat of a temple drum echoed through the streets, marking the passage of time, though up here, time felt endless. The astronomer exhaled slowly, watching the stars continue their ancient course, each one a distant dream, a silent story waiting to be told. He closed his eyes for a moment, feeling weightless beneath the vast expanse. The night wrapped around him like a velvet embrace, whispering its secrets in a language older than the city itself. Above Babylon, the stars burned on, and below, the great kingdom rested, cradled in the hands of eternity. The scribe set his reed pen aside, stretching his fingers as he gazed at the delicate script covering the tablet before him. The day's work was done, the records of kings and conquests neatly inscribed into clay. But as the last echoes of footsteps faded through the halls of the palace, he longed for the cool breath of night. Stepping through an arched doorway, he entered a hidden courtyard, tucked deep within the heart of Babylon's palace. The space was a world apart, shielded by high stone walls, softened by the embrace of swaying palm trees. The marble floor beneath his bare feet was cool, kissed by the evening air. A gentle wind curled through the open colonnades, carrying the scent of sandalwood and distant myrrh. He closed his eyes, letting the night settle around him. This was the side of Babylon few spoke of, not the grandeur of its gates, nor the might of its armies, but the quiet harmony Nebuchadnezzar had sought to cultivate. The king was known as a builder of wonders, or ruler of vast lands, but here, in the sanctuary of the palace, he had been a man who listened. The scribe recalled whispered tales from the elders, of nights when Nebuchadnezzar sat beneath the palms, listening to the voices of poets and dreamers. He had pondered the meaning of the stars, the wisdom of the ancients, the gentle flow of the Euphrates. Here, away from the weight of his crown, he had sought the harmony that he wished to weave into the fabric of his city. The lanterns flickered against the stone, their light dancing like golden brushstrokes on the walls. The scribe traced his fingers along the cool surface of a carved pillar, feeling the artistry left behind by hands long gone. The courtyard had been witness to centuries of whispered thoughts, of hushed conversations beneath the glow of the moon. He sighed, releasing the thoughts of the day as the breeze played through his robes. The leaves rustled, a soft and steady lullaby, the night breathing its own quiet wisdom. Here, there was no need for hurried words, no weight of history pressing upon him, only the whispering winds and the serenity they carried. With slow, deliberate steps, he crossed the courtyard, his heart as light as the drifting air. The world beyond might remember Nebuchadnezzar as a king of conquest, but here, beneath the stars, his true dreams lingered, in the hush of the night, in the poetry of the wind, in the quiet corners of a city built not just of stone, but of longing, of wonder, of peace. The chamber was bathed in the dim glow of oil lamps, their golden light flickering gently against the richly woven tapestries that adorned the walls. Outside, the hum of Babylon had faded into the deep hours of the night, leaving only the hush of the wind as it curled through the palace corridors. Within the stillness, Nebuchadnezzar lay awake upon his bed, his gaze lost in the shifting patterns of shadows on the ceiling. A trusted attendant sat nearby, his presence steady and quiet. He had served the king for many years, watching over him through nights of unrest and nights of dream-filled wonder. Sensing the weight of contemplation upon Nebuchadnezzar's mind, the attendant spoke, his voice as soft as the flickering flame. "Dreams are the whispers of the unseen," he murmured. "They come like a river in the night, carrying messages from lands beyond waking thought." The king exhaled slowly, his fingers tracing the embroidered patterns upon the silken covers. "I have seen visions, ones I cannot yet understand," he admitted. "Cities of gold, statues of many metals, the rise and fall of empires." The attendant nodded, his eyes reflecting the soft light of the room. "It is said that the greatest rulers do not command their dreams, but listen to them. There was once a king who sought counsel not from his court, but from the silence of the night. He learned that within stillness, there is wisdom. And within dreams, there is truth." Nebuchadnezzar closed his eyes, listening to the quiet around him. The palace, so grand and vast, seemed to shrink into the warmth of the chamber, as if it too was settling into rest. The attendant's voice drifted through the air, slow and deliberate, like the final notes of a song. "Sleep is not an ending, but a passage," he said gently. "Let the night carry you as the river carries the leaf, weightless and unbound. Let the dreams come as they will, whispering secrets only the heart may hear." The room breathed in silence. The oil lamps flickered, their glow casting softer and softer shapes upon the walls. The hush of the city outside seemed to deepen, cradling the chamber in quiet reverence. Nebuchadnezzar's breath grew steady, his thoughts drifting into the place where wakefulness fades and dreams begin. And as his eyes closed, the listener too was invited to follow, to step into the hush of the dreaming king's chamber, and surrender to the gentle pull of sleep.